Hello and welcome to Heavy Metal Rex. My name is Wace, and today, finally, I'm heading out for Subiefest. This is actually my very first Subaru festival. I've never been to anything like this before. Most of the car shows I've been to have been local and small and kind of, you know, just your regular car meet. So this is really exciting because not only am I going with the car, but I'm actually going for the first time somewhere after having this YouTube channel for over a year now. And so there's actually people who want to see me, actually people who want to ask questions and stuff like that. So that portion is very exciting. So I'm super excited about that. I still am trying to clean up the car because it rained yesterday. The car's really dirty. I am in the car show, although I don't expect to win any prizes. I just want it to be as clean as possible. I still have to pack up a couple more things in the car, and I still have to go get gas. So, and Joliet is 4 hours away, and it's almost 2 o'clock. So I'm really behind. My daughter had a soccer game this morning, which we lost 2-0, but that's okay. So still a lot of stuff to do. The car's almost clean. I just need to wipe it down, get everything in the car, and then you guys are gonna come with me. And this is gonna be more of like pretty much a vlog of the whole weekend. I'm gonna try to capture everything that I do. I think that's gonna be a lot of fun because there's so many people that I know from online and our Facebook group that I look forward to seeing and catching them on camera. Somebody did offer some autocross rides. That's gonna be fun. I'm gonna try to capture that. Of course, the car show, and then anything else that happens. And you know, whatever nighttime activities happen as well. You know, I heard that there's like car shows or like car meets that usually happen in one of like the hotel lobbies and stuff like that. Or, you know, just whatever happens, I'm gonna try to bring it to you guys. I'm gonna bring you along with me because this is fun for me, and I bet it's gonna be fun for you as well. Part of the car that always needs the most attention are these white wheels. And I know everybody always asks me, what is it like owning white wheels? To be honest, it can be a major pain in the ass because I just washed these. Actually, I took the wheels off and I washed these about a week ago. And this is all the brake dust. But also, to be fair, this is with the EBC yellows. So the EBCs have a ton of brake dust that they leave off, and oftentimes there's not much you can do about it. And then you're probably thinking to yourself, damn, Wace, why the white car and then also white wheels? Isn't that hard? Well, yeah, it is hard. But I'll tell you something, my wife is also white, so I'm used to difficult things. All the washing and the drying is done. Car looks so much better, but it's probably only going to look this clean for till the end of the night. I probably should bring a cover or something to put over it to keep it clean until tomorrow. But my buddy's actually coming. He says he's bringing some cleaning supplies, so we'll wipe it down a little bit before the show tomorrow. It's just going to stay parked at the hotel, and then it's going to stay parked at wherever it is that we go. So I mean, it looks so much better. So now that this is done, I got to get the stuff put into the car, and we're going to head over to the gas station and get some gas. So this Phillips 66 is where I go to get all my ethanol. It's right by the house. I actually just tested it. It looks like it is 83, which generally this place is like between 80 and 83 pretty consistently in the summer, and like in the 70s when it's cold. I'm actually gonna run my E85 tune all the way there because I'm curious as to what kind of gas mileage I can get just straight highway. Just an update on the drive. I'm about, I'd say, a little over an hour into it, and surprisingly, and also unsurprisingly, I haven't seen a single other interesting car on the road. There was this random red Jetta with red wheels, which I thought was really funny, and I tried to catch up to him, but I mean, the man was driving like 100, and I'm not trying to kill my gas mileage on the way there just to catch up to some weirdo car like that. But it's been very quiet. The car's getting surprisingly good gas mileage. I'm a little over. I've used a little bit less than a quarter, and I've gotten like 90 miles so far. And it's just a wide, as you can see, it's just a wide, empty, open road. There's really nobody behind me, nobody in front, really. So I'm just able to pop the cruise control on and just cruise. Finally, check it out, a 22 WRX. I've been driving this whole way. I'm like halfway there, and finally there's somebody else. And it's funny because we ended up getting stuck in construction and having to go 55 miles per hour for like 6 miles, and he was behind me the whole time. Let's see if we my assumption is that he's going to Subiefest. There's no way he's going anywhere else. He definitely looks like he uses his Subaru a lot. I wonder if he just lives here, or if he's going to a show. He's from Alabama? It looks like a limited too. It's got like the... Alright, on my way. It's 14 minutes away. I got my dash card printed out, and now you guys can see some of these cars in the morning. There's the VB with the what looks like, yep, they're Vors GR4s. I missed those, dude. They were actually really good. They're actually really nice wheels, even though people do say it's reps. And now you guys get to see this crazy Mercedes with the smokestack. Look at this thing. What is happening? That is wild. I hope to hear this car later in the day. Coming up to the raceway now. That's the raceway over there. Bunch of Subarus in front of me. A lot of people here. Yeah, the line's pretty long, but it's kind of what happens when you don't sleep at night.
Getting their car damaged.
Imagine getting your car dinged at a car show.
Yeah.
Where everybody should be conscious of each other's cars.
Yeah, that's why I tell people, just keep in mind, you know, when you...
Guys, finally at Subiefest. Way parked in the back, but there's a lot of really cool cars, but there's also a lot of regular cars too, so...
With an agenda of mass murder, referendum. Hooking from a crash to start to twist, pistons pumping residents. The spark ignites, the engines roar, hatred burning to the core. Fueling fear, lies and deceit. Tanks in the air and blood in the street. Play the game. Be away. Feel the war. Build for war. Dividing devices of discontent. Cultural conveyor creating dissent. The bombs are in play and march in tandem. Systemic control, propaganda. The violence begins in propagation. Mechanized social manipulation. The blinding wheel starts to turn as the dissidents start to burn. Call my name. Place the blame. Bigotry. A hate machine! favor game. Faceless leaders with no name. Their guys of war have no end. Just gonna see the rising these men. All the world, decimation, free thought, annihilation. Domestic destruction, dystopian dawn. The steamrolling weapon keeps rolling on. Stand in line. It's your time. Society. The hate machine. Hate machine. Hate machine. Hate machine. Hate machine. Hate machine. Society, fuck my bosses, be the naive, mindless, seek human scum, possibilities are political, possibility in charge of the war, help to the payment base to the floor and trust, one more devils in a game, victims, what we are, just like running and taking the law, taking the truth in the ways for the weak, showing in opinions, gas liberties, wow! Wars, nature and cold, the second of the just selling the soul. War begin, come around the leaves, bring by the powers of goodness and needs. Still live in charge of the war.
Around here, and when just 6 meters from center, these things are now shooting culture where it's just simple, yeah. Dude, I like the pink arrow kit. It looks good.
This is, it is, yeah, so that's the OEM style. I don't know if it is the OEM. Yeah.
I talked to you on Reddit.
Look at this thing.
Oh, I got something cool to show you.
Wow, they actually did put front wheel drive out there.
you know what you guys see? Did you see the little fucking van? The little van? There's a little fucking van thing over there. It's awesome.
Oh, I didn't.
You gotta see it.
I think I'm gonna have to go back and see that. Dude, that's our future. Next year, that's happening. The VB is gonna look like that.
Yeah.
We're gonna go to Defiance. We're gonna go to Troy. We're gonna go to Potosi. I'm gonna drive in my backyard. It's gonna be awesome. I'm actually more excited to do that than everything I've done this year.
Yep.
Oh, dude. It reminds me so much of like a DeLorean because of the square lights.
Yeah, I know.
It looks so cool. It's gonna be so much fun to drive one of these. Well, it clears up. It clears up. Hold on, I gotta get another cup. Look at this.
Yeah, it did.
Yo, why? It's a little cloudy.
Weird.
Yeah. Is this an EJ?
Just a little bit of metal shaving.
It's just a little bit of metal shavings in there. That's okay. We have Subarus. We're used to. Yeah, but I mean, like you said, like
Why?
is that extra minerals?
Probably gotta replace the gaskets in there.
I don't know.
It tastes normal.
Maybe if you want to dump it,
I'm just gonna send Uber.
Super tiny.
But it's tall.
What in the world?
Look at this.
Guys, look, this is a Subaru van. Because it does look like a sandbar from the front. If you just think about cutting the half off and putting a trunk in the back, or the, dude, that is awesome.
So what is it actually called? A sandbar.
Okay, so it is. That's what we're talking, because like it's if you cut half of it, it's like the key truck.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is. It's just it's the van. So it's the Diaz van.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Oh,
I've already started looking. You should see my search history. I'm going to find one.
I was looking for a Sambar because Ryan Berg has one.
Yeah, yes, he
Oh
does.
no, he has a Mazda. He has a
his
Mazda
is the
key truck.
Mazda
Yeah.
one. Yeah, I love it.
God, that's. So I got a chance to see Kevin Vo at the Driven.media tent, and I gotta say he was the nicest guy. And what was crazy to me was he actually knew who I was, which kind of made me feel good. So we're definitely gonna be working together in the future. I did try to stop by the AMS booth. They were showcasing the new intake that they have for the 22WX, but I wasn't able to talk to them. So what's really cool is Clint is actually going to be doing a mini tuner talk for us. I actually had no idea that they're doing a learning center here. So even though this was not part of the plan, I'm going to try to stick in as much of this as I can, or else it's going to be like an hour-long video. It's, I think, a 30-minute talk, but I'm sure he's going to be hitting some really interesting points. You guys are going to want to see this.
Subiefest Midwest 2023. How are y'all doing today?
Good.
Awesome, awesome. I'm very thankful that they changed the title of this tech talk, because originally it was something about prepping your car for dyno tuning, and while it is a fantastic topic for a tech talk, it is not necessarily what we're talking about today. But a quick introduction, my name is Clint. I am the owner of CS Tune. We are a Chicago-based tuning company. We support Nissan, Subaru, and Toyota platforms through Ecutech. And we are also a certified Ecutech Master Tuner, which is essentially, for those of you who don't know, very similar to what a Cobb Pro Tuner would be through Cobb Tuning. Basically, the goals of this tech talk today, I'm going to hopefully help everyone get a better understanding of data logging and how to use it, because it is a very important tool that not only your tuner can use to help get you a better tune, but so that you can also use to get a better understanding of what's actually going on with your car. We're going to be diving in a little bit to data logs in general, and hopefully give you guys the ability to analyze and digest that information in there and put it into a plausible format that can allow you to draw conclusions about what's good happening with your car and what could be better. We're also going to be identifying some of the limiting factors based on that data that we're finding in logging. So whether you have a naturally aspirated BRZ or a built STI, we're going to dive into why you aren't making the power that you want to be and how you can get there. So to start off, I'm going to need some help from you guys. What are the 4 main things that an internal combustion engine needs to run? Air, fuel, spark. Love works, but compression is also good. So technically 5, yeah, because they do need love, especially Subarus. If you don't love them, they'll leave oil stains everywhere. Oh, yeah. So I'm going to start with probably the most simple one, which is compression, and I'm going to sort of tie it into engine health and maintenance as well. So when we are limited on power by a lack of compression, first of all, it's a very bad thing. If we don't have the compression that we need, if we do a compression test and one of the cylinders comes up 50 psi lower than the others, we know we have an issue. And if we do have a lack of compression, we'll immediately notice poor overall engine performance. And the way to diagnose that is simply perform a compression test. Pull a spark plug, get a compression tester in there, and make sure you kind of know what you're dealing with. If we have a maintenance issue such as a misfire, that could also be a very prominent thing that can limit our power, especially on the top end. We can experience a hesitation or perhaps some sort of stumbling. We could also have roughness in our cylinders. Something for those of you who have perhaps an access port or an Ecutech kit for monitoring, you can monitor something called cylinder roughness, and there's usually a roughness monitor for each of our 4 cylinders, especially in newer vehicles. What a roughness monitor tells us is it essentially tells us how many misfires are happening in that cylinder in a certain period of time. If we are seeing a certain number of misfires or roughness happening over a given period of time, then we could potentially see a check engine light for a random misfire or perhaps a cylinder-specific misfire as well. We can also see knocking corrections come from our misfire monitors as well. Say you have a newer Subaru WRX with a DIT engine, a lot of times what happens is when we're trying to push a lot of power through that stock fuel system, we can actually ask more than the fuel system can deliver. When that happens, we run into misfires, especially at higher boost levels and higher RPMs. And when that happens, we can see on our access port or on our Ecutech monitor, we can see knocking corrections such as our fine knock learning or our feedback knock. And these will be active. They will be actively pulling ignition timing and power out of your engine in an attempt to protect everything. How we fix misfires, typically it's a spark plug or a coil pack if we're lucky, but we can also see something like a vacuum leak can cause a misfire. Now if we do have spark plugs or coil packs that are going bad, we can always switch stuff around and we can see if that trouble follows from one cylinder to another. But a lot of times for how cheap it is, just replace your spark plugs every 30,000-40,000 miles and save yourself the headache. If we are limited by a vacuum leak, we can see abnormally large fuel trims. For our access port people, this is going to be monitors such as our air fuel correction and our air fuel learning. In a perfect world, these numbers should be 0, and when they are 0, essentially what that means is the amount of air and fuel that is going into your engine is correct. The ECU does not need to add extra fuel, it does not need to remove fuel, it is operating exactly the way it's supposed to. But we don't live in a perfect world. So a lot of times we will see our fuel trims, such as our correction and our learning, be positive or negative. Seeing anywhere from 10 to 20% in either direction is typically okay. It's not going to cause us any issues, maybe a little bit of drivability stuff here and there, but otherwise it's still safe and healthy. But if we are seeing 30 or 40% either in the positive or the negative direction, it could be a sign that maybe we have a coupler loose, maybe we have a TGV gasket that is not seated properly, or maybe we have a vacuum leak somewhere else. Typically, you'll have idling issues or drivability issues that follow that as well, but a vacuum leak is fortunately a very easy thing to diagnose. We use a smoke tester through the intake to pressurize the system, and wherever that smoke leaks out is where we need to look at the fix. Now, unfortunately, fixing vacuum leaks isn't always very easy. It could be something simple like a coupler, or we might need to tear apart the intake manifold and find out what's not corrected properly. If we are limited by our dirty intake valves, especially on those of you running direct injection, such as a 2015 or newer Subaru WRX, we have an unfortunately expensive process that becomes a part of normal maintenance. This is called walnut blasting. Do not get this confused with the chemical cleaning solutions that are offered by most dealerships. A chemical cleaning does do well to clean up some of the carbon deposits, but a lot of times you really need to perform a walnut blasting where you are essentially shooting hardened walnut shells directly at your intake valves to physically scrape that extra carbon deposit off of those valves. When you do have caked up or dirty intake valves, you can see hesitation or stumbling with the engine, specifically at wide open throttle. And we can also see a lot of knocking corrections, sometimes so much so that we lose our advanced multiplier and we start to see the engine globally removing power and torque, which is not fun for anybody. But once we do perform a walnut blast, typically even without any tuning, we can see so much as 10 to 20 horsepower gains. And if you tune after a walnut blasting, you may even see more. So for our DIT guys, make sure you do that on your car. We like to say every 30 to 40,000 miles, but if you have the equipment at home and you have a compressor and a shop vac, do it a little bit more than that. So moving on from compression is we have air. So airflow and turbocharger flow plus efficiency, they kind of all come into play at the same time. For our naturally aspirated people, such as the older legacies, or maybe you have a BRZ, we can be limited by our mechanical airflow. Since we don't have a turbo or a supercharger, we are physically limited by how much air that our engine can take in, and that has to do with the design of the intake, the design of the engine, the cylinder heads, and everything like that. Unfortunately, it's not very easy to fix these problems because they usually involve either porting out your cylinder head or in most cases just adding some sort of forced induction. But if we are limited by mechanical airflow on a naturally aspirated engine, we might see that we have reached our ideal air-fuel ratio. We have reached the maximum amount of timing that we can put into the engine, and we have also found that our fuel system duty cycle is exactly where we need it to be. When all of these things line up, but we're still not making more power, we pretty much know that we've reached the limit of what that engine can actually make physically. So, might be time to look into that turbo kit that you were looking at. For our turbo guys, our WRXs, our STIs, all of that fun stuff, we can be limited by our turbocharger flow rate. If we look at a parameter called wastegate duty, this is essentially what your tuner has set your wastegate duty solenoid frequency to be, and in a certain sense, the more wastegate that you put through that turbo, the more boost you're going to get in return. If we have reached our maximum wastegate duty cycle, typically around 90%, and we are still not seeing more power or boost from our turbo, it means that we could have maxed this unit out. A lot of times with our stock STI turbos, or perhaps our VF turbos as well, we may try to put as much boost through it as possible, but it simply won't take any more. In that case, it might be time to look at a bigger turbo that can supply more volume of air with less boost, which can make more power but also lead to additional reliability as well. If we are limited by our turbocharger efficiency, which does happen, it's a little bit less common, but we see it specifically on the direct injected WRXs as well. We will need to identify our turbocharger efficiency range first and foremost. Most turbochargers out there, if you go to the website of that turbocharger, you can actually see a compressor map which tells you for a certain amount of boost how much flow that turbo is going to produce. This also helps you from a tuning perspective to find the ideal amount of boost pressure to run to make the most power and to have the most efficiency. Unlike what a lot of people think, more boost does not always mean more power. If you turn it up to 22 or 24 pounds of boost on a stock turbo, you may be putting more pressure through that engine, but at the same time you're going to be putting a lot more heat through it as well. And especially on turbo cars, heat is our enemy. The more heat we have, the more likely we are to run into detonation, and detonation can be a very expensive problem if it's not brought under control. Now, we also have boost pressure versus our charge air temperature. So what charge air temperature essentially is it's the temperature measurement at the manifold absolute pressure sensor. So we're actually getting the temperature of the air going into the engine after it has gone through the turbo, after it has gone through the intercooler. And this is what's really important, because the temperature of the air outside or in our intake doesn't tell the whole story. If we find that we have too much charge air temperature going into our engine, we may need to reduce our boost pressure. That's a big thing that we do typically. When we reduce the pressure, we reduce the heat, and therefore we can actually make either the same or more power with a lot more reliability. And another thing, if we have issues with air temperature, is we can get a larger turbo. A larger turbocharger typically has less exhaust pressure and also less heat because it's flowing a higher volume of air at a lower pressure. Less heat means happier engine, which means a happier driver as well. So moving on to our fuel system, I'm going to rope in the general fuel system along with fuel injectors as well. So if we are limited by our fuel injectors, this is a very common thing on the STIs or the EJ engines in general. The factory fuel system on an EJ engine is not typically rated for any more power than they come from the factory. If you add an intake and you add a downpipe, you may very quickly realize that you have run out of fuel injector. Now, something that we can see to see how close we are to running out of fuel injector is we can look at our injector duty cycle. This is a parameter that is fairly universal regardless of whether you use an Access port or Ecutech or even open source. Injector duty cycle, we typically like to keep that number under 90%. Once we get over 90%, such as 100 or even 110 or 120, because you can go over that number, what we see is we aren't actually atomizing the fuel properly. So atomizing fuel is basically how we're going to get an efficient combustion within the cylinders. If we are dumping fuel in its most liquid form, it's not going to be good, it's not going to be efficient, and we're probably going to run into misfires and a lot of that hesitation and stumbling as well. If we do find that we have too much injector duty cycle, usually we can fix it. Sometimes it involves upgrading your fuel injectors. So for direct injected guys, maybe we go to a set of Nostrum injectors, or perhaps we add secondary port fuel injection. If we have an EJ engine or something with port fuel injection already from the factory, we can simply get a larger set of injectors, such as an Injector Dynamics 1050 set or a 1300 set. And injectors are also rated in cc's of flow per minute, so that's a good indicator of how much fuel you're going to need. You can find out what size injector you're going to need for your build. Personally, if I'm making a build list for somebody or building a car with port fuel injection, I'm going to have them get a larger set of injectors than they actually need. Nothing crazy like a 2000 plus cc set, but if you only need 1050s, get a set of 1300s. If you end up adding more boost or more power in the future, at least you know you already have a good set of injectors in there, and you don't got to tear the thing down and spend more money later. On the DIT cars, a lot of times, if we're running at, say, ethanol, such as E30 or E50, we can find that we are actually putting so much more demand on the fuel system that we do run out of fuel. So something big that we do is we actually lower we actually lean out the air-fuel ratio a bit. So instead of running 11:1, we might run 11:2:1, or instead of 12:1 on ethanol, maybe 12:2 or 12:3. What this does is it puts less demand on the fuel system and allows you to make a little bit more power without needing to break in and starting to get into installing new parts and all of that kind of fun stuff. What we can also do is we can reduce our boost pressure. A lot of times you don't need to run 20 psi on an E85 car to make that same power, because you can make up for that lack of boost with more ignition timing and a leaner air-fuel ratio. So when we lower that boost, like I said before, not only are we reducing heat, but we are also reducing the amount of air going into the engine, hence reducing the amount of fuel required to meet that desired air-fuel ratio target. Now, for the DIT cars, we can be limited by something called our fueling window. So, a very important parameter for anyone who has a direct injected car is to monitor your fuel injection end to spark. This parameter is measured in milliseconds, and what it essentially means is how much time is elapsing between your fuel injector shutting off for that engine cycle and your spark plug firing. On a direct injected car, since that fuel is being injected directly into the cylinder, we don't want the fuel injector spraying while the spark plug is igniting. If we do, we can see a misfire, and we oftentimes do, especially when we're dealing with higher power ethanol cars. Something that we can do to increase that fueling window, there's actually a lot of things, and I've personally used all of them on my car because I could not for the life of me get that thing to make more power. But what we do is we lower the ignition timing a little bit. This means that the spark will fire later in the engine cycle, and as a result, we will lengthen the amount of time that we can put fuel into the engine. We can also lower our boost pressure, which I know kind of seems like a theme at this point, but it really is a way to kind of fix a lot of these issues. We can lean out our air-fuel ratio. We can pick a leaner AFR, such as, like I said, 12:2 or sometimes maybe even 12:5:1. This will mean that we will put less strain on the fuel system, effectively lengthening our fuel injection window. We can also, thankfully, on both the EJ engines and the FADIT engines, we can actually tell the fuel injectors when to start firing and when to stop. So, for instance, if we're running out of our fuel window, instead of extending it, we can just move it a little bit earlier entirely. This gives us more room to inject more fuel and to make more power. Upgrading to larger fuel injectors is always a good solution, as well as importing secondary fuel injection. We actually have a car at the CS Tune booth today that made about 530 wheel horsepower using both direct and port injection on an FA20 DIT. So if you want a little bit more information on how you can get that on your car, feel free to stop by the booth and we will walk you through some of the parts you need and how to set up a complex system like that. So last but not least, we're going to talk about spark, or ignition timing. And with ignition timing comes the daunting talk of detonation as well. Us Subaru people, we always see the negative 1.41 on our access port or on our Ecutech kit, and it scares the crap out of us. And a lot of times it's not something that we really need to worry about. It's just a part of that engine and that ECU doing what it needs to do for the circumstances that it finds itself in. So if we are limited by knock or by ignition timing, typically we'll see our feedback knock correction or our fine knock learning correction be active in negative values. I did touch on this before, but I'll give a little bit more information. Feedback knock, or sometimes they call it AK knock, and depending on what sort of software you're using, this is a real-time reaction to something that a knock sensor has picked up as noise. Every engine that Subarus have some sort of knock sensor. Typically they have 4, one for each cylinder, and what they are essentially are just little microphones. They are looking for noise that is not otherwise normal. When they pick up a certain amount of noise, it relays that information to the ECU, and the ECU makes a decision on whether or not to reduce power via reducing ignition timing. And the reason it does this is because if it is detecting knock, it wants to remove timing to make sure that the engine is healthy and that you don't run into any issues where you're on the side of the road with a piston that shot 4 feet that way. We can also see our fine knock learn correction be active. This typically isn't active before your feedback knock. What happens is if the ECU detects enough of that feedback knock, it will store that information and it will say every time that we go past this RPM and past this amount of engine load, we will preemptively remove timing because we expect there to be an issue there. Now, if that happens continually over and over again, we could even see our advance multiplier or our dynamic advance multiplier change from the optimal value to something that is suboptimal. What an advance multiplier is it is a global ignition timing change. So it says, regardless of what engine speed, what RPM, what engine load you are at, we are going to remove timing because we have detected a persistent issue with knock. On the EJ cars and the older Subarus, typically the knock sensors aren't as active, so if we do see an advance multiplier changing, we know that there's something that we actually need to look into. But for the DIT cars, especially the newer 15 to 21 or 2022 or newer WRXs, these systems are fairly active from the factory. And the reason this is because these cars were designed to run 87 octane. They don't run very well on 87 octane, but it is designed to make the tune from the factory safe enough to work properly with that fuel. And as a result, the knock sensor activity is off the charts. So if you see knock sensors, doing what they do, if you see your advanced multiplier not at the optimal value, don't always freak out. It's not the biggest issue, but sometimes it might be important to grab a data log and ask your tuner. Because at the end of the day, they are the person who's going to be able to give you the best advice. They are the person who knows your car well. Sometimes even they know it better than you do. And they are going to give you the most accurate and reliable advice that you can get so that you can fix your car right the first time. If we are running into issues with our dynamic advance or with ignition timing, one thing we can do is make sure that we're using top-tier pump fuel. Personally, I like to go to BP, but any top-tier station works. Shell, Mobil 1, it's all very good. If we are still having issues, we should consider perhaps trying an ethanol blended fuel. For a lot of us that are running, especially on the DIT cars, we can add up to 2 or 3 gallons of E85 to a full tank, and run completely perfectly on an otherwise pump fuel tune. And this is a great way to essentially make sure you provide the engine with a little bit more space so that it can do what it does without having any issues. Something else that I don't typically condone because there are better options out there, but methanol injection is a great way not only to lower the temperature of air coming into your engine and the temperature of combustion, but also to reduce detonation and knock. Methanol injection is technically chemical intercooling. So instead of needing to go get a larger intercooler or perhaps a bigger turbo, you can implement methanol injection and significantly reduce the temperature of combustion within your engine. Less combustion temperature means less detonation, means less knock, which means more longevity and power from your engine. A couple of hard parts like intercoolers and larger turbochargers are typically the easiest and most common ways that we see people combat detonation or knock related issues. A larger intercooler will be more efficient in cooling the charge that's coming into the engine, and as a result you'll be able to make more power, run more ignition timing, run more boost, and have a happier engine. Upgrading to a larger turbocharger is always also a great option. It allows you to run less boost, more flow, less heat, and less detonation. A lot of times you can also turn up the timing and make a little bit more power on the top end as well. So that basically sums up, I know it's a lot, and it essentially is like a tuner talk because it is a lot of tuning specific information, but a lot of these parameters, they may seem difficult or confusing, but once you kind of dig into it a little bit and, you know, attend a tech seminar, do a little bit of research on Cobb's website, there's a lot of information out there that is fairly digestible, and it allows you to look at a data log and for you to be able to denote what's happening instead of needing to email somebody and wait for a response. At the end of the day, tuners and shops are extremely busy, especially around this time of year. It's very important for people to be able to identify a potential issue for themselves, you know, and that's the biggest thing with tuning, especially when I got into it, is I want to make sure that people understand what's happening. When you give your $30,000, $40,000 investment to a shop or a tuner, you deserve to know what they're doing to your car. And I think that is invaluable information that everybody can learn from, and it can be useful to everyone. So at this point, that's pretty much the end of my tech talk. Does anybody have any questions I can answer?
Barrier that separates the autocross court from the rest of us. Please do not sit.
I'm glad you're all experts now.
Maybe taking a half a step back from the.
Fair enough, I'll take a clap.
On how to enter. If you have any trouble entering the raffle, just head over to the info.
We're having an issue. Matt's car is leaking gas. Gas is important. That's how we're gonna get home. Warning: use E85 only, but only if it stays in the tank.
No wonder my gas mileage is way worse.
Yeah, your gas mileage is, yeah, because it's just been leaking out. I wonder if it's been leaking this whole time now.
Probably.
So I guess we're gonna try to go find some tools.
That doesn't seem safe because it's kind of flammable.
Only, it's not. Only if you light it.
Yeah, me too.
We'll stop back again at Driven Media and talk to Kevin before we leave. But we're gonna go talk to. I guess we're gonna go stop by RAE's booth, and then we'll see if they got any tools, and then hey, I finally made amends with Clint, so I'm sure he'll help now.
Yeah. We'll figure it out. No, I'm smelling it. I knew I wasn't.
It was, yeah, and it was somewhere. Maybe the wind is just blowing it all over the place.
Yeah.
So you couldn't really tell where it was coming from. Alright, we're gonna stop by the CS Tuned booth. So this is RAE Motorsport's car right here. You guys get to see it in person. So all their stuff is titanium.
It's beautiful.
All in. I can't remember what intercooler. Or she just got another intercooler and just welded her own pipes. You knew something was wrong when it was 9.
Yeah, when I was single digits, that was bad.
So we're at the CS Tuned booth. This is all of RAE stuff. Oh yeah. I didn't know if you wanted to say hi.
I was up here with my hot dog. I might as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, come back in like 10 minutes. He's gonna do this quick.
I just don't think the line's seated correctly, or the hanger's not all the way down, because the hanger had the wire for the.
Man, love, love, love Foresters. To 60 in 12 business days. So this actually has been a super fun day. I got a chance to check out Clint do basically a tuner talk. It was a lot of really good information, tons of cars. Most of the time I'm spending is just like walking around. I got a chance to talk to Kevin Vo. I'm going to try to find, there's a place where you can do the simulation racing. I want to try that as well. There's just so much stuff to do, and it's like kind of hard to make like a proper video because like I'm just getting distracted by all the cool Subaru stuff. So this was cool. For every signature they got, Subaru actually donated to, I believe it was a pet charity. So as you can see, the car is littered with signatures.
Brandon, I saw the
Right on the plastic.
the dolls that you saw.
2018 Crosstrek, and it's Hannah Gragg's car. Hey, Hannah, all right.
They're really cool.
Kansas City, is that right? All right.
Seems like a market that's pretty much based on like GoPro doesn't have I know everything.
All right, next up is the best WRX and STI 2015 to 2021.
Award ceremony is over. Obviously I didn't win, but that's not even important because I got an update with Matt's car. All right, so a lot's going on. There's a lot of gas. Yeah, it's in there, but guess who came to the rescue? Kevin Vo with his tool set because we needed one. Yes, thank you to Kevin from Driven Media for getting us a tool set to be able to fix this thing. So, but I think they're trying to bounce, so hurry up and fix it. Matt thinks it's the gasket because it's still leaking a bunch, or he actually just cleaned it up and it's starting to pool again. You guys can't actually see it, but there's gas coming out in there.
I'm gonna call Tanner and bug him.
Yeah, call Tanner. Tanner knows everything. Tell him to come and fix it. All right, as you can see, the event's pretty much closing down. We've been here since morning till end. All the vendors are pretty much packed up. Kevin is packing up, he's heading out. We got Matt's car kind of not fixed. But the most important thing is we had a lot of fun. I know I had a lot of fun, and I'll be honest, I actually spent more time socializing than actually checking out some of the stuff, which is a problem that I have a lot, and my wife tells me about that all the time. My friend Matt.
I had a lot of fun too. I'm glad you had a good time.
It was really fun. I did enjoy it. There was a couple of things I wanted to do that I didn't get a chance to do, like the iRacing simulator, which was really cool. I know Bucky and Scott had interviews with Subaru. I wasn't able to catch that. I wanted to take a ride in the 22 Subaru, the 22 WX. I was doing the Autocross. I didn't get a chance to do that. I really wanted to do that. Out of all the things, that was what I was excited about, but that's okay. This is like the first time I've made like an actual vlog style video, and it was different. It was very different for me. So there's a lot of things I have to learn. Like I could have done a little bit more, maybe like interviewing the guys. And actually I got a chance to talk to Bucky at the very end. I know he was like trying to run out of here, but he was walking this way, so we ended up stopping and I ended up showing him the car. And actually, didn't Bucky say his wife has a 22 CVT? Yes! That's what we found out. Bucky's wife has a 22 WRX with the SPT, which is awesome. And he wants to modify it, but his wife won't let him. That's hilarious. I mean, how many people would have thought? You know, so that was really cool information to have. Besides that, this has been a great event. I'm actually gonna be at, I'm gonna be in Orlando. October 7th, I'm gonna be in Orlando. I really want to autocross. I don't know how it's gonna go. I think I am actually gonna be a booth car for some possibly Import Image Racing. But if there's some way I could try to do both that and autocross, I'm gonna try. But if not, at least I'll have a spot where I'm standing and you guys can find me. I know I missed a lot of people today because they were looking for where I was. And I'm a wanderer, you know, and I go places, I start talking, and I kind of get lost in the crowd. So I'm sorry if I wasn't able to catch you. Either way, man, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know I had a great time. If you haven't been to one of these events, you gotta do it. It is a blast. There's just so much to see, so much to experience. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Before you go, if you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. Hitting that subscribe button costs you guys nothing, and it gains me everything. I try to provide as much entertainment and information as possible, whether you're looking at my racing series, Vehicular Acceleration Testing, or you're looking at Tuner Talk, which is actually a great series for newcomers and veterans. My only goal is to try to make the VB community better, and I can't do that without your help. Thank you.